What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. It's a mailbag edition, so I'm answering questions that came in during our live show. But quick reminder to go ahead and click the like button down below if you haven't already. Our first question coming in, and I have a question for this person. Is it Steven or Stefan? Because I've heard it kind of going both ways. But we are 3 years away from winning trade Myles Garrett. Andrew Berry, just so we're all clear, had already said that they're not trading Myles Garrett. And I will take Andrew Berry's word for that. I know sometimes it's not always the case. The Giants once said we did not extend Odell Beckham Jr. just to trade him, and 1 week later he was in Northeast Ohio. But I do not believe Myles Garrett will get traded. I also don't think it's a good idea to trade Myles Garrett. And I think there are plenty of examples of teams in the midst of a rebuild unloading one of their star players for draft capital, and it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's also understandable. There are players, though, that I think are just above that. It's not a very big list, but I believe Garrett's on that list. When you are talking about the best player in your franchise history in the prime of their career, you just can't make that trade. Not that you couldn't get a good amount of draft picks back, or maybe even put together a good roster without Garrett, but it is career suicide to trade away the best player in your franchise's history. This is more of like an emotional decision for me than a logical decision. And I'm a logically driven person. But when we're talking about 95, I just can't proceed with the idea of trading him. Mike, next one up. What's the biggest draft need? Great question, Mike, because you'd think with the way, like quarterback, obviously, but just put a pin in quarterback for a second. You'd think with the way the defense played last year, that would be high up on the list. You want to hear something weird? There's not a single starter on this defense who's going to be a free agent. Everyone's coming back, technically, if you go off of like a healthy lineup. Devin Bush is a free agent, but he really wasn't a true starter until JOK went down. Even Juan Thornhill has 1 more year on a contract. Everyone in the secondary is under contract. Everyone on the defensive line is under contract. So it's tough to really look at that and think there's a major hole on this defense. Because in a lot of ways, it's tough for me to shake the 2023 defense and want to replace some of those starters. But if we're looking at the defense, I'm thinking you can never have enough pass rushers. The corners did not play well enough last year to let them just roll it back again. And while I do think the eventual departure of Juan Thornhill could open up a need at safety, I'm comfortable with Ronnie Hickman and DeAnthony Bell. So I'd like to add 2 just cornerstone positions. Edge rusher, corner, offensive tackle, wide receiver maybe, but it's not a very good receiver class. If it's we don't really know where to go with this pick, invest in a good stock, right? I'm not a big stock guy, but just go with the S&P 500. Like, just take a safe bet. An edge rusher, an offensive tackle, or a cornerback. Also running back. But I'm just thinking of the defense right now. Jeremy, I'd rather throw the Patriots a 4th-round pick for Joe Milton. Go sign Cousins or Rodgers and let Milton sit and learn for a year or so. Tons of potential. Take Hunter or Carter at number 2. Jeremy, this might be one of my favorite questions you've ever gotten in a mailbag before. Because as a Tennessee grad, I was a lone defender of Joe Milton in his last season in Knoxville, placing the blame predominantly on the wide receivers. And that's kind of aging pretty well. Also, Milton played very well in Week 18 for the Patriots. After Drake May went down very, very early in the game, Milton stepped in quite nicely, and I'm all ears to the idea of trading for Joe Milton. I'm guessing the Patriots don't want to trade away Joe Milton. When you find something at quarterback, and listen, it's not a whole lot of data points on Milton, your first inclination is, let's trade that guy. No, it's not. It's tough to find good quarterbacks. Just like how the 49ers would be foolish if they were thinking about trading away Brock Purdy because he had a good preseason because you already had Trey Lance there. If you've got something you think maybe special, just maybe, you're not going to value it at a 6th or 7th round pick. And that's likely what you would get in a Joe Milton trade. No team's going to give up a 4th for a 7th round pick. Now, as for the Hunter or Carter part, yeah, give me Abdul Carter. That's my preference over Travis Hunter. Krispy Kreme, unpopular opinion, not a big Krispy Kreme guy. It gets my fingers too sticky. Will the Browns end up signing Sam Darnold? I'm sure the Browns will have interest in Sam Darnold, and I think they should have interest, and they should do their homework, and they should explore that option. And I would be happy if they signed Sam Darnold for the appropriate price. What I don't think is in the Browns' best interest is giving Sam Darnold such a large contract he can't refuse, and then he comes to Cleveland, and the magic he kind of had with Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison disappears, and he kind of starts to become a pumpkin again. And the Browns are the ones on the hook for a $100+ million contract. I'm not concerned about the way he ended last year. If the issue is he didn't play well in the playoffs, I'm sorry, did you say playoffs? I stopped listening after that because that's all I'm thinking about right now. So if Darnold gets you to the playoffs but can't quite get you over the hump in the playoffs, fine by me. We can cross that bridge when we get there. But my concern is rooted in he's going to get a big contract if he's leaving Minnesota or in a bit of a bidding war with other teams. And I'm not so comfortable with the idea of the Browns overpaying for someone that hasn't played a snap for them yet. That doesn't work out super well often. One, it's not very common that teams find a free agent quarterback, find a franchise quarterback in free agency. But usually when they shuck out big bucks for someone who's never played for them before, it doesn't have the greatest ending. Go see Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. So let me know, do you want to sign Sam Darnold? I like Darnold for the Browns at the right price. That's the boring answer, but it's the honest answer. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Give me a yes or give me a no if you'd like to see Sam Darnold come to Cleveland. Excellent gamer. Can we make a splash in free agency? I don't think so. For starters, the Browns have not really made splashes in free agency. Under Andrew Berry, their biggest signing is Dalvin Tomlinson. What was that, like a 4-year, $55 million contract? Something like that? They make bigger splashes in trades. That's where the Browns are at their best, or at least at their busiest. ESPN put out an article. We did a video on this of the top 50 free agents, and I identified 3 players I could see the Browns having interest in. If you want to qualify Justin Fields or Chase Young as a splash, then yeah, that could be your splash. I don't think they're going to get T. Higgins, though. I'll just stop you right there. I don't see that one happening. I don't think the Browns are going to be busy in free agency. They always like to have flexibility to make moves if wanted, but I don't believe that's going to happen. Before we move on to the next question in today's mailbag, I do have to give a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. So if you want to go to a Cavs game or any other event in Cleveland or your local area, visit Game Time because with Game Time Picks, you can find the best value for where the seat is and what the price is. So once more, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. All that information is in the comments and description of today's video. It's a great way to go out and do something on a weekend and not just be a bit of a homebody, which I like to do from time to time, but I also love going to comedy shows and sporting events. And with Game Time, you can save $20 in the process with promo code CHATSPORTS. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Joshua Miller, what draft-eligible quarterback would best fit Coach Stefanski's system based on what we've seen this past season? Josh, great question. So let's talk first about what Stefanski's system is. I think his ideal quarterback is someone that can line up under center, execute play action, the arm strength to push the ball down the field, and reduce the amount of turnovers that have plagued the Browns' offense the last 2 years from all of their quarterbacks. So, who's a good, accurate, kind of play action-driven quarterback? Shedeur Sanders did that a lot at Colorado, and if Shedeur Sanders was available in like round 2 or round 3, I'd be all ears. But I don't think he has enough playmaking ability to really elevate a roster around him, and that's what you're looking for when you're drafting someone second overall. I think Shedeur could have a career kind of like Geno Smith's having right now, where it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I don't think Geno Smith would go second overall in a redraft. So, as for other quarterbacks that kind of fit that mold, Will Howard is going to be a popular name that comes up. He's tough. He's got the ability to use his legs and pick up the first down the tough way. I do have a little bit of concern over there's open and then there's Ohio State open. And we've seen Justin Fields struggle in the NFL when he's not throwing to Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, all those other great receivers he had to work with. And that to me is something that I would say I can't get past, but it's weighing heavily in my head. So right now, Shedeur is probably as close as you get to someone that could fit Stefanski's system well. I don't think Cam Ward would be all that great of a fit, but if he can make all the big special splashy plays, you can probably live with the good and the bad there. Kind of like Brett Favre, a bit of a gunslinger. But Sanders, I think, is probably the closest to it, Josh. Mason Anderson. How long do you think Nick Chubb is going to stay at Brown? Chubb has said he wants to stay at Brown his entire career. Andrew Berry was not super committal after the season when it came to re-signing Chubb. Now, if he comes out in a press conference and says, we really want Nick Chubb back, when he goes to negotiate with Nick Chubb's agent knows, you guys really want him. It's a bit of leverage. Supply and demand. There's only one Nick Chubb, and there's a lot of demand. I think Chubb could return on a base minimum, heavy incentive-laden contract. But that should not stop the Browns from targeting a running back in round 2, which is where they found Nick Chubb. Super Bowl Productions. I'm sorry. What about trading Okoronkwo for a couple of picks? Who's trading for him? I mean, you could find someone maybe for like a 6th or 7th, but who's going to look at 1 year on his contract and he hasn't played super well the past 2 years? I'd have a tough time finding a long list of buyers. Why not just use the picks they were going to trade for Okoronkwo and then go draft an edge rusher? This year's defensive line is loaded. It's a super deep class. It may not have a generational player like Myles Garrett, although some might think Abdul Carter's generational. I won't use the word generational with Carter because he's only played the position 1 year. I need to see a little bit more of a sample size before I crown him generational. But there are a lot of really good players beyond Carter. So if you want an edge rusher, just use the picks you're going to use on a guy who's older and has 1 year left on his deal for a guy who's younger and will have 4 years left on his rookie contract. Made you look-see. Big reach. But what are your thoughts on the Browns trading for Bryce Young if it doesn't involve giving up a first rounder for him? The Panthers aren't moving on from Bryce Young. They finally start to get some returns on their investment, which was a big investment for him, towards the end of the 2024 season. Why quit now? You've gone through the hard part. And you're not even getting a first round back for him? Yeah. I'm sorry, George Pickens. Also, you want to talk about trading. George Pickens, I think, is getting traded. There's a hot take for you right there. I'd be somewhat surprised if he's on the Steelers to start 2025. There is like receiver diva, and then there's George Pickens. And if you're a diva, like Antonio Brown was, but you're also like a top 3 receiver in football, you put up with it. He's not a top 3 receiver in football. He's not worth the headache. Joshua Miller, Super Chat. What would make the offseason a success? I'd say not overspending or overinvesting at quarterback, understanding that it's not a very good quarterback market. If you could get Sam Darnold for cheap and draft Abdul Carter, that to me would be like a dream. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to go for cheap, and I'm also not even all that convinced he's going to be leaving Minnesota. But I guess that would be the dream, kind of. But to me, it's just not impossible, but it's a little bit too lofty. So I'm thinking Darnold for cheap, Abdul Carter at number 2. X20 Cameron, are you going to do a draft live stream? That's the hope. The pick in second. Yes. I was thinking all 7 rounds. I was like, I can't guarantee all 7 rounds. For pick number 2, yes, we will be live on the Cleveland Browns Report. You're also asking this on a kind of I would say a bad day, but we just got a whole rundown from our bosses about the construction at Chat Sports as we're expanding and adding a couple more studios. In the process, some other studios are being shut down to be like kind of not remodeled, but just worked on. And the hope is that they're all up and running by April, but it's February, and we know how construction sometimes can take a little bit longer than hoped for. So hopefully everything will be smooth sailing by then. Let's pick a card to wrap up today's show. Which card do you want to go with, Mr. Barkis?
We were very close last time.
Here's my advice to you. Ready? Whatever you're thinking of picking, don't pick it because it's not going to happen. So you improve your odds by removing the first card you were thinking, since it's never going to be that card.
But what if it is?
It's not going to be.
But what if it was?
Nope. I'm giving you a better odds.
Okay, I was going to go with like an 8 or 9.
Okay, so rule it out because you know it's wrong.
I'm ruling it out?
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to go with Jack of Spades.
My sophomore year of high school, I was not a very good chemistry student, and I had this realization of I'm not doing well on tests. So whatever my first gut is for the answer, rule it out because I keep getting them wrong. So I removed my 1 in 4 chances to 1 in 3. And Mr. Tucker would be proud because I did pretty well in the next chemistry test. So what are you thinking? What's your answer? Okay. Is that your second guess? What's your first guess? Okay, see, I'm helping you guys out here. My first thought was 10 of clubs. It's not going to be 10 of clubs. So I'm going to go with my second idea. And it's going to be 2 of hearts.
I can't wait for it to be 10 of clubs.
It's not going to be 10 of clubs. Here we go. What was everyone's first guesses? 9 of spades? 9 of diamonds. You said
Mr.
8.
Tucker, come on.
Yeah, but it's okay. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. I'll see everyone later.